Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a new series devoted to lesser-known works by major composers, because I know you all want to fill out your record collections, and there may be some things that you haven't uncovered yet. So this is not really devoted to people who are already fanatical and know all this stuff, but rather for people who are working on building their collections and who have the most popular pieces by the great composers and who are sort of wondering where to go next. And you know that you like them and you know that you're likely to like them, so you're going to like these. Does that make sense? All right, we're talking about Bartók first. Now, most of you probably have some Bartók, probably a piano concerto or two, maybe, or the concerto for orchestra, or the second violin concerto, and, maybe the dance suite, some of these pieces that are deservedly popular on a more gnarly but unbelievably fabulous level. There's the music for strings, percussion, and celesta, which was used in the movie The Shining. Really wonderful, wonderful stuff. Bartók's reputation right now seems to be a little bit on the outs. People come and go. And, during the 1950s and 60s and 70s, Bartók was very, very highly respected as someone who was not an avant-garde composer, but whose music was so formally elegant and rigorously structured as to excite the admiration of just about everybody. And he was particularly highly regarded because he wrote 6 remarkable string quartets, which were considered to be, and still are in many respects, one of the greatest cycles of string quartets since Beethoven. So he's not a composer who's getting less respect, but he seems to be getting a little bit less performance than he used to be. But who cares? Because we're dealing with records where we can do anything that we want. And the work that I have in mind is the 4 pieces for orchestra, also known as 4 orchestral pieces. This is really quite the title tells you nothing, right? It's generic. And there's actually quite a bit of Bartók that he wrote before the pieces that made him famous that we talk about now, the piano concertos and concerto for orchestra, which was a late work. He was a very busy composer, and he did, in fact, compose quite a bit of stuff in a variety of styles. He arose out of the late Romantic style of Liszt and Wagner, and Liszt particularly, who he admired tremendously. He did not get as heavily into the nitty-gritty of Hungarian folk music until around the 1920s or so. Before that, he was really considered to be a modernist, an avant-garde composer with works like The Miraculous Mandarin and The Wooden Prince, the ballets, that he did. And the 4 pieces for orchestra are transitional works. They're a combination of impressionism and, like Debussy, that kind of impressionism, beautiful, flowy, spacey, evocative, orchestral textures, and lush harmonies, sometimes gnarly, chromatic, difficult harmonies in the final movement, which is a funeral march, and which is quite harsh and very grim. It's a powerful work, but and also expressionism. Schoenberg and, the crazy German expressionists who were doing all of that scarifying music. He was into that too. So this piece reflects all of those things, to be honest, and his nascent Hungarianisms. So there's a lot in this work. He wrote it in 1912, but he didn't orchestrate it until the 1920s, about a decade later, when there was finally a possibility of having it performed. And that's one of the reasons I think that it's not as well known as it deserves to be. The fact that it ends with the funeral march doesn't help either, but he himself neglected it. He didn't see it as characteristic of his mature style. And maybe it's not, but that doesn't mean it isn't terrific music, because he was a fantastically gifted composer at all periods, whether or not he happened to be in love with whatever he created in every one of those periods. So there are 4 movements, as the title, 4 orchestral pieces suggest. The first is simply prelude, and it's a dreamy, lush, harp swirling around and all kinds of, yummy textures. Very, very beautiful and soft. Then comes a very harsh and rhythmic scherzo with a great, nasty main theme. Da 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 da. I wish I could play it for you, but I have to get permissions from somebody, and it's not going to happen with this particular work because there aren't enough recordings of it. But there are some marvelous ones, which we'll get to next. After the scherzo, which is really bracing and exciting and tangy, comes an intermezzo with a tune that is so lovely it got stuck in my head the first time I heard it, and it's still there. It goes. Oh, it's just lovely. I mean, it's really haunting with an amazing orchestral texture of soft harps and strings. It's like seaweed, a kelp forest drifting slowly under the waves. Wow. Then comes that funeral march I talked about that wraps the whole thing up in a particularly grim way. But the pieces are wonderful and certainly worth getting to know. And it's an indication of just how terrific they are that they appealed equally to Pierre Boulez, who recorded them twice. This is his first and better recording with the New York Philharmonic on Sony. And Eugene Ormandy with the Philadelphia Orchestra. This is the Japanese RCA reissue, which couples it with the Shostakovich 15th Symphony. It's actually a rather good coupling, to be honest with you. But and they both give excellent performances. There really are no bad performances of this work because it's so infrequently done, and so it tends to be performed by people who know Bartok and care about Bartok and really know how to bring it home. And so whatever performance you get's fine. And it's on YouTube. You can listen to it, find probably half a dozen of them or more at this point. Who knows? But it's a work that if you enjoy Bartok or you enjoy his more popular pieces, I really suggest that you get to know because you will find much to love. Really, you will. And it doesn't sound like anything else he wrote. And that's also important, or everything else he wrote. That's also important because we like to have variety within the consistent personality and character of a major composer's work. And this provides just that. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.